I think we will start, just a few housekeeping issues. Maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Helen Hall, I'm actually the controller of ADB. I think I am a student of sustainability disclosure, so I'm here to learn from the panel today. The session is taped, for you to know, and we are using Pigeonhole if you want to drop a question in through the discussions, and we will find space at the end to take those questions. So it's my esteemed honour to introduce my boss, who's been, I think if you're Italian, you don't need to know who she is, but if you're not, Roberta Casali is the VP for Finance and Risk, and she will be running the session today. So I hand over to Roberta.
Thank you, Helen, and good morning, everyone. Buongiorno a tutti. I feel quite comfortable with this high-level panel, so I would not work so much today as I did the other day when I was in a seat as panelist, because I count on these very high-level people that are very diverse and represent the regulatory body, the standard setting, the Ministry of Finance, and the corporates. So let's start. At the Asian Development Bank, we are all committed to supporting sustainability disclosure, including our own. And ADB has been publishing its sustainability report under the GRI, so the Global Reporting Initiative Standards, on a biannual basis since 2007. I really believe that sustainability is part of ADB and any MDB DNA. We work, of course, closely with regulators, industry groups, and other stakeholders to promote the adoption of global sustainability reporting standards. And we do it more and more, and with a greater attention and really interest, because we really believe that are crucial for corporate governance and for any institutions, certainly for us too. Today, as I said, we have a very diverse panel of experts representing regulators, standard setters, and the private sector to discuss, sorry about that, to discuss unlocking the power of sustainability reporting. And it happened yesterday too, so it could be what happens at 9 o'clock. To start the section, it's my pleasure, without further ado, to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Carmine Di Noia, Director for Financial and Enterprise Affairs at OECD, so at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Carmine has been instrumental in shaping global standards for corporate governance and sustainability. His extensive experience and insights into financial regulations and enterprise affairs will provide us with valuable perspectives on the importance of sustainability disclosure and its role in driving meaningful change. Carmine, as you have seen with the presence of our President Kanda, has worked together with President Kanda, who chairs the Secretariat of the Corporate Governance Committee at OECD. Carmine has a long experience and a long relationship with our President, and really from here we can learn what OECD is doing. Please join me in welcoming Carmine to the stage. Thank you.
Grazie, Roberta. Thanks a lot. I hope your voice is sustainable. I mean, because you have been speaking these days a lot, and so it's one of the last efforts. But thanks a lot for being here, and it's a pleasure to be in Milan. And my sincere thanks to ADB and for convening this timely important discussion, and then to Roberta in particular, Casali, and to President Kanda. As Roberta was saying, we have been, actually he has been really very instrumental in the discussion of today. Masato has been chairing the Corporate Governance Committee of the OECD for 8 years, from 2016 to last year, 24, and I have been the pleasure to work with him as Vice President of the committee for 6 years, and revolving doors for a couple of years as the Director of Financial Affairs, so serving the committee at Secretariat. And without, honestly, the ability, the strength, the courage, and the work that Masato has put, we wouldn't have Roberta mentioned the global standards, the G20 OECD principles of corporate governance, which were actually created in 2000, but then endorsed by G20 in Turkey, actually, in 2015. But the new version was released during the G20 in India, and as many of you also working in the G20 environment, this was the only document delivered by the G20 India, not even, as you know, the press release. We have only the chair statement. This was thanks to also the ability of President Kanda. And there are many things, and then I will go on, but the most important thing was, this new Article 6 exactly on sustainability disclosure, how the board should engage on sustainability issues, and also the relation. This was, as you can imagine, quite critical, but we were able to do it. It's important. We have been working at the OECD with President Kanda, also with many of you. It's good to have also a panel with public, representative of public sector, private sector. It's important to have a dialogue. This is also the way to have sustainable, I would say, principles that can be really applied. I always be scared of fake 100% compliance of everything, so it's important to have a dialogue. Now, to kick off, just one question is, how do we ensure that sustainability reporting really serves as a meaningful mechanism for real change? Now, sustainable business and sustainable finance, I think they are an imperative, not only so an opportunity, something like that we would like to have, nice to have, but really we need to have. In recent years, global crises we have seen have disrupted progress on sustainable development, from COVID-19 to regional conflicts, even in these hours, and the accelerating impacts of climate change and the tensions on the geopolitical side. Now, the systemic risk we face today, from supply chain disruptions to climate change, so directly affect companies and all the business, their business operation. These are not, peripheral concerns. They are material risk and opportunities that directly shape corporate resilience, investor confidence, and long-term growth. So being able to address them is not just about doing the right thing. It's about really long-term competitiveness, and we have been talking about this a lot. There is so an opportunity here to therefore transform sustainability disclosure from being just a compliance obligation and an exercise that no one likes, to really a strategic asset. And so it can provide markets, investors, and stakeholders with essential information about the risks and opportunities that companies face and how they manage them. So sustainability disclosure is already reshaping corporate culture and investor relations. Last year, we released our first global corporate sustainability report, mapping up, actually also, you mentioned about the GRI standards, so uptake of GRI, TCFD recommendations, SASB standards. The second edition, this was last year, but it was in March, so it was on financial statement of 2022. This year, we will launch the new report after the summer in order to have financial statement 2024. So I say that last year was year 0, okay? This will be year 1 also with the new standard, okay? And so we will track adoption of IFRS S1 as S2 standards, and also of the European sustainability reporting standards for European companies, offering so hope valuable insights into disclosure trends. and we have in a database all listed companies all over the world. Now, last year report shows that in 2023, of the 44, we analyzed 44,000 listed companies statements. Almost 10,000, that represent 86% of total market cap, disclosed already some sustainability, related information. There is a big size effect. I told you 86% of market cap, but in terms of numbers of listed companies, this is just 22%, okay? We can elaborate on that, but okay. We see high levels of disclosure even in markets, so this is positive, where there is no statutory requirement to disclose sustainability-related information. For investors, this is a supply and demand issue. For investors, sustainability material, sustainability information is essential for pricing risks, making informed decisions, and exercising their voting rights. For instance, institutional investors globally hold 41% of shares in the 100 companies with the highest disclosed GHG emission. So underlining the importance of corporate governance frameworks in facilitating and supporting shareholders' engagement. Less than 1 month ago, also, my team published all these analyses on the website, a new analysis comparing more than 2,000 metrics across 8 leading ESG rating products. What did we find? First, ESG ratings reflect a company's policies and activities rather than really their impacts. So 68% of all metrics measure company policies and activities, so rather than really outcomes, which is okay, is a path, It's not, I don't want to say it, but okay. Second, coverage of ESG topics is really uneven. Key topics such as biodiversity, human rights, and corruption are barely covered in the metrics or entirely omitted. And third, the same ESG topics are measured differently by different rating products. Could be okay, competitiveness, but also there's something strange. The number of metrics used to measure corporate governance, for example, ranges from 4 metrics in one product to 113 metrics in another product. So it's really very diverse. Fourth and last, sustainability due diligence is barely measured. Of the 2,000 metrics analyzed, less than 5% are associated with basically enterprise-wide due diligence, and only 7% with management of supply chain sustainability. So while there is, an increasing demand for and supply of sustainability information, we have a problem of how it is used by some market participants. And the answer to this problem should come from both policymakers and investors who can drive the disclosure and employment of decision-useful sustainability information. Let me highlight, and I try to be quick, 3 critical ingredients of high-quality sustainability disclosure. First, sustainability reporting standards should be flexible and cater for the diversified and dynamic nature of what is considered material. And in our global corporate sustainability report, we find that climate change is considered a material risk for listed companies that represent nearly 2/3, 64% of global market cap. Human capital risks are currently the second most important sustainability risk. Ecological impact and human rights seem not to be captured by the same degree in most regions. Materiality may, however, change with context and over time. Our G20 principles, which I showed you, which were actually approved before also then the disclosure of ISSB sustainability standards, and we work very close with IFRS Foundation and ISSB, provide for this flexibility. And again, thanks to the work of President Kanda. The OECD guidelines and other standards for multinational enterprises for responsible business conduct contain a disclosure chapter on how companies should report on their due diligence processes, as well as their key sustainability risks and impacts. And together, so these 2 standards provide a comprehensive framework for ensuring harmonization and comparability among different standards, while allowing for jurisdictional flexibility. Second point, corporate sustainability disclosure should be underpinned by robust sustainability due diligence risk and management processes we were just discussing before the panel. Otherwise, you don't know where this comes from. Okay, but this is really key. We need robust numbers. And this ensures investors that companies have credible and comparable processes in place to identify and assess the materiality of sustainability matters. And the credibility of these processes underpins the credibility of companies what is sustainability disclosure. And for large listed companies, it's also good practice that a board committee oversees the quality of sustainability disclosure. And third, as noted also in the G20 principles, OECD principles, independent assurance enhances investor confidence and improves comparability. It's not, a silver bullet, but obviously can be very important in a different also, declinations, cost, SME issue, and others, phase-in and so on. So globally, about 2/3 by market cap of sustainability reports are assured by an external provider. And in Asia, actually, that figure is 52%. So larger companies are more likely to seek assurance, but regulators might consider requiring it, initially focusing maybe on key metrics like greenhouse gas emissions where feasible. And just to close, allow me with a word also the important role of ADB, Roberta, and so transmit to President Kanda. I think ADB also has a unique opportunity to, first of all, to align regional standards with global frameworks by continuing to collaborate also, also with us and in international organization, because fragmentation is a big issue. I always say, talking about the European context, it's great to have leaders in the markets, also in improving standards. But if you are a leader without followers, you are not more a leader. And so this is really important. So revised G20 principles, OECD can serve as a valuable foundation for supporting jurisdictions in region and in Asia as they develop or update disclosure policies. And the OECD also guidelines for M&Es or responsible business can help business make sense of how disclosure practices fit within broader risk management and decision-making corporate system. The other opportunity, I think, is to invest in knowledge and knowledge sharing and capacity building, which you are already doing, by also organizing, training programs, workshops, and regional dialogues. Here again, also with the OECD, data analysis can contribute guidance for regulators, investors, and business across the region. We will have our next seminar at the ADBI in Tokyo. We have been also our capital market, and also many important people of ADB, including Roberta, have been also participating in our work. And the OECD so provides also with this sort of free training and capacity building to businesses in various sectors also and across regions on risk-based due diligence. So unlocking the power of sustainability disclosure really means creating a corporate ecosystem where sustainability is integral to governance, decision-making, and value creation. So it requires leadership, trust, and collaboration across regions and between companies, regulators, investors, international institutions. So I look forward to today's discussion and to working together as we advance this important agenda. Thank you.
Carmine, thank you. Thank you very much for highlighting the ingredients, the three important ingredients. So the issue of identify what is material, the data, importance of data collection and risk management processes, and certainly also having assurance. And thanks also for highlighting the importance of collaboration and building an ecosystem in which altogether we can change really and do things that are meaningful to describe what are the relevant issues in terms of sustainability. Because without also reporting in a robust way, we cannot say that we are really doing what we are doing. So reporting is as much important as action, the action that we take. And without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our distinguished panelists, who bring, as I said before, a wealth of knowledge and experience from various groups. And from the regulator perspective, we have Stefano Cappiello, Director General for Financial Regulation and Supervision at the Italian Ministry of Economic and Finance, Treasury Department. His expertise in financial regulation and enterprises affairs will provide us with valuable insights into regulation landscape and the role of policy sectors and regulators in promoting corporate governance and sustainability. From the standard sector perspective, We are joined by Tai Young Pike, which I thank, a board member of the International Sustainability Standard Board. His insights will help us understand the importance of standardized sustainability metrics and their impact on global practices. And finally, from the private sector, we are honored to have Gingai, in reality Anna Margarita, but call her Gingai, right? Ontiveros Malvar, Chief Reputational and Sustainability Officer at Aboitiz Equity Venture from the Philippines, and Meng Yang, Global Head of ESG and Sustainability at Ant Group from China. Their leadership in sustainability with the private sector will provide us with practical examples on how companies can drive positive changes and demonstrate the tangible benefits of integrating sustainability into business strategies and operations. And before we start, just I want to, if you have questions, you can submit your question through our platform, which you may access through this QR code. Or, of course, raise your hand. Okay, ready? Meng, we start now with Meng. From a corporate perspective, how do you see the role of disclosures? And in what ways have disclosure impacted your organization's decisions and activities? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, VP Casella, for having me here. It's my great honor to join this diverse group of experts to discuss this very important topic. Sustainability disclosure, this topic itself actually relates to two hats I'm wearing, ESG investor and ESG practitioner. During my past 13 years with the World Bank Group's IFC, International Finance Corporation, as an impact investor, we use the ESG disclosure as a tool to help assess whether a company is worth investing in. And now with my current role at Ant Group, as an ESG practitioner, I gained a deeper understanding of the role of disclosure. And I fully agree with the company said, disclosure shouldn't be seen as a compliance obligation, but a strategic asset. So building on what you highlighted, I want to, from a corporate perspective, to share three critical roles. Sustainability disclosure is adding value to Ant's journey. First, a North Star. At Ant Group, as the name Ant indicates, the small ant, our mission is really to use technology to bring small and beautiful changes to the world. Primarily, we want to help financial inclusion for the individual customers and SMEs. 3 years ago, we upgraded our CSR framework to a comprehensive ESG strategy, and we set up a 2030 sustainability goals for the corporate, and also with 3-year OKR, which is objective and key results as our milestones. And what's the role of disclosure here? It's very important because our annual disclosures really helps us to check where we are and help us to stay aligned with our long-term commitments. For example, two years ago, we first time introduced the 33 key metrics and the targets, like numbers of rural farmers supported by big data lending, digital empowerment for women. Through such key disclosure metrics, we really integrate disclosure into our core business, into our value creation. Number two, I would say a mirror. Mirror means self-reflection, because when we dive into the leading ESG standard, disclosure standards like ISB, etc. We conducted a TCFD, a climate-related diagnosis 3 years ago. For the first time, we got to know by 20, 30, 40, and 50, what are the climate challenges, risks, and opportunities we are facing, and the impact of externality we as a corporate and also as a platform would have for the corporate and for the industry. So it's not only a paper, analysis on paper. More importantly, that TCFD analysis help us to integrate into our business decisions. We are now able to locate our data center and the disaster recovery center to a better location. We also help develop financial instruments, insurance to help our SME clients to enhance their climate resilience. So the mirror self-reflection through comparable analysis of the standards and the comprehensive diagnosis, we have a better understanding of the context and where we're pursuing. The third role of disclosure for us is a bridge, because we do not see disclosure as only you issue an ESG report. It's not a one-way communication. It's also not for the shareholders or investors. It really needs a mindset change here. It's all about engaging with broader society and broader stakeholders. That's why every year we have our pre-disclosure export reviews and also our post-release stakeholder dialogue. And every year we have our ESG Open Day to really listen to various inputs so as to build an open and cooperative ecosystem, as you highlighted. So I would say ESG is about action over words for us. We think good disclosure must come from and reflect your genuine practice. And the disclosure process itself also drives improvement. ESG practice and the disclosure, like twin brothers or twin sisters, they go hand in hand, putting sustainable development forward.
Thank you. That is great. I mean, small changes in the world, big changes, I would say. Because the power of disclosure changing the organization, the power of disclosure entering into your activities, everyday activities, not as a check-the-box exercise, but as a true exercise that is impressing a change from inside and also connected with the outside. Thanks a lot for your North Star, your mirror, and your bridge. Gingay, can you walk us through the Aboitiz Group sustainability journey and how it started, the key challenges you faced along your way, and how sustainability is also for you, for your group, important? How is it changing the Aboitiz governance? Your point of view.
Thank you, Roberta. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here to share and learn with all of you. So our perspective is really from a publicly listed conglomerate. We have several companies in the Aboitiz Group. We're present in several sectors, including power, banking and financial services, food and agriculture, real estate, infrastructure development, and DSAI. So when we started our sustainability journey, I would say that it's almost intrinsic to who we are as Aboitiz Group. Sustainability for us, long before it became formalized as sustainability or an ESG track, was really about being responsible for our own stakeholders as well as the communities where our businesses operate. And about 15 years ago, we started this journey on sustainability reporting, mainly, and just like most publicly listed companies in the Philippines, really started from a compliance point of view, as well as a risk management perspective. So about 15 years ago, we started with our sustainability disclosures, and we discovered that it's just like Meng's explanation earlier, it's a really good way for us to put numbers to the many initiatives or actions that we were already doing. And I think more importantly was to think about what kind of a future we were trying to co-build or co-create with our stakeholders, not just for Aboitiz Group, but for the country as a whole. So it really started that way in a very simple manner. We did not have a governance structure, so one of the first things also that we did was to put into place a sustainability governance structure to help us institutionalize and formalize the way that we wanted to deliberately and meaningfully do sustainability within the organization and how we could embed it at every level of the organization across the group. So it's not an easy thing to do when you do a governance structure that way, because we are the holding company, but we do have several businesses. We have about 40 different business units, more than 40,000 team members across the group. So how do you really make sure that you're able to embed sustainability down to the throughout the organization? So we use the process of setting up a governance structure. And of course, at the very top of that governance structure was our board of directors. I think it was very important that firstly, we influence and try to advocate with our own board why sustainability was important, why we need to do these sustainability disclosures, how it's actually contributing value to the organization, not just in the short term, but in the long term, and also how does it help to address material concerns that our stakeholders might have towards the business as a whole. So we started with the governance structure. We set up a committee to be overseen directly by the board of directors. We had sustainability embedded in our management committee, which is essentially composed of the CEOs across the group. And then a very important component of the governance structure, and probably one of the most important things, was we set up an Aboitiz Group Sustainability Council. It's composed of sustainability champions and practitioners from across the entire organization. And this really gave us sort of like a real, a very realistic view on how sustainability was being done at the organizational level, and then more importantly, how we were going to be more deliberate and strategic in embedding sustainability as part of mainstream business operations. I would say also, aside from the governance structure, I think one of the challenges that we also faced was how do we advocate more widely for sustainability across the organization. So I think in the first few years that we were doing sustainability reporting, advocacy and communication was really, really important to the work that we were doing. And all the processes that we were doing at the time certainly helped to show people that sustainability really happens on the ground. It is not a responsibility or a function or a department that's confined only to a few sets of team members or people across the group. It is the responsibility of every single team member. So we did a lot of advocating, a lot of employee engagement. We tried to work through the different work cultures across the different business units to be able to slowly embed this sustainability mindset. Just going on a little bit about the challenges as well, and I'm sure a lot of the other companies also have this experience. To be honest, when you want to learn about sustainability disclosures, you want to learn about all the reporting standards, you want to find out which ESG ratings are really useful for you so that you can track your sustainability performance, it's actually very costly. It's very expensive, and that's really the reality. So when we were also starting our sustainability journey, it was also a matter of justifying to our board, why do you need to spend on all these things, and what does it actually create for the business, right? So at the end of the day, for us, we always go back to our purpose, the purpose beyond profit. And for Aboitiz, it's really about advancing business and communities, being responsible for a larger stakeholder set. And so we always went back to that original mission of advancing business and community so that we could justify all the investments that we were making into learning sustainability disclosures and far more or far beyond just sustainability disclosures to be able to justify while we are doing all these investments in sustainability initiatives. And I would say over the last 15 years, there's been tremendous growth in the appreciation and understanding of our sustainability champions across the group. Not everybody is in the same level of maturity, so that's the challenge that we're working on now, is how to bring up the level of maturity and understanding of all our different sustainability practitioners. Admittedly, we have some business units which are younger. We need to do a lot more hand-holding. We have the other more mature business units which are probably in power and banking, which are already on the cusp of doing their own sustainability reporting. But we really want to, to gather that collective strength of a unified voice of sustainability, regardless of where you sit within the organization. So it's been interesting, challenging, and I know there are many things that we are continuing to look forward to. Assurance is one of them as well. It's one thing when you report, it's another thing when a third party says, yes, this information is credible. And that's really important to our stakeholders to make sure that what we are reporting is genuine, it's authentic, it's transparent, it's, comprehensive. Yeah.
Great. Great, because you raise the importance again of the governance and the importance of the tone is set from the top. And also I like very much the passion and the way in which you describe that is strategic, is the board should be convinced to invest and to really go through the process of sustainability, which is a transformation process, a transformation journey inside any organization. But to be successful, it should penetrate and reach every member of the organization, each person that works for the organization. And also thank you for describing the challenges and the fact that you use many keywords. You should be responsible, you should not continue to invest and continue to bring people inside the true meaning of sustainability. But I would conclude also asking Meng to speak about your challenges so that we can have a complete picture of the pros and cons also for your company.
Sure. Further to Jingai's sharing, maybe I could give a real example how we see the challenges and how we try to tackle it. Maybe as many of you may know, carbon emission reduction is a common challenge for many corporates. For Scope 1 and 2, as an IT company, in the past 3 years, Ant has already achieved Scope 1 and 2, meaning operational carbon neutrality. But the biggest challenge is about Scope 3, which is the indirect value chain related. There are 15 categories, your upstream and downstream. So how could we engage with our hundreds of suppliers to change to help them reduce the carbon emissions? According to a CSRC, China Security Regulatory Commission's statistics, majority of China's listed companies reported difficulties in doing Scope 3. There are typically, we also observe 3 challenges in common: lack of control, lack of data, and a lack of certainty. Lack of control meaning you do not have direct control over your suppliers, let alone hundreds of suppliers. Lack of data, there are still fragmented or sometimes unavailable data related to carbon emissions. Thirdly, lack of certainty. If we want to calculate or reduce, we do not see sufficient localized taxonomy or toolkits. So because of such 3 challenges, 2-3 years ago, we were also hesitating how to start this journey. But we were inspired by ISSB. When Vice Chairman Jing Donghua visited Ant Group in Hangzhou, he encouraged us. He said, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You can start from proxy." So we started a dual way. On one hand, internally, we set up a task force. We realized that carbon emission for supply chain requires 16 departments' cooperation internally. So we started to collect the data and learn how to verify the data and focus on materiality rather than hundreds, thousands of data. On the other hand, we take the dive into the global peers. We studied how Google, as the world's first IT company who achieved carbon neutrality, how Google, Microsoft, what they have been doing in this field. And we identified as a tech company, we also have our own strengths. So we started to use blockchain. With the traceability strengths, we were able to work with partners to help collect better data, verify the data. So we kind of, during this journey, we turned the impossible triangle, the 3 leg, into the opportunity triangle. We realized that our CPU efficiency gain has increased by 5 times during the past 6 years, resulting in both environmental and economic gains. So it's really commercial benefit. It's not only a capital market requirement. And we are also working with our top portfolio companies to work together with them. They are our category 15. So we are trying to figure out what are the actionable plans. It's not us as a shareholder to request them to do so. They realize that by having a better capacity, they would be able to attract a better green financing, and it also helps with their overseas expansion. So we realized that initially it was a challenge, but challenges could be turned into opportunities if you had the good mindset and the right approach in partnership. And I would also say one of the takeaway is from proxy to accuracy. Sustainability disclosure is a continuous evolution towards maturity. I don't know whether there is an ending of maturity, but we are on the way. Thank you.
That's great, Meng. Great, because we should all start identifying the issues. So now the challenges that you said, lack of control, data, uncertainty, but move on. Because the only thing that we cannot do is just to be trapped in the fact that we do not have this, we do not have that, and so we cannot move if we are not perfect. And I totally agree with you that we should avoid, and we should remember that the perfect is always the enemy of the good, and if we move, we can obtain results along the way. It's a lot of work. We should be brave enough, but the continuous journey of improving is the only possible way. And you mentioned also the importance of the guy on my left, the importance of the standards. And so, before going to the standards, let me pass the floor to our regulator, or to the vision that Stefano could bring to our discussion today, outlining the policies and initiatives or the support that an authority like the Ministry of Economy can do and can provide to the small and medium enterprises in the ESG transactions.
Thank you. Thank you, Roberta, and thank you for having me here, and congratulations for this conference and organizing this session. I will focus on SMEs because SMEs represent the backbone of the Italian economy, and because I think that the experience we are having in this journey, I like this metaphor of a journey, we are all on a learning curve, I think could be of some use also for the constituencies of ADB with regard to SMEs, and also because SMEs are those that are more in need of a strategy from the side of the public sector. And as with it often happens, there is no silver bullet for this issue. We are following a multi-pronged approach, a strategy that is based on what I call, in Italian, I would call them this strategy, the 3D strategy. Actually, if you translate in English, the D, one of the 3D becomes an M. So the strategy is based on 3 letters: money, data, and dialogue. In Italian, it's denaro, data, dialogue. So 3D, money, data, and dialogue. And I will articulate briefly on these 3 elements. Money, we are trying to mobilize private resources, capital markets, in order to finance the twin transition, innovation and climate change. They are intertwined because innovation, digital innovation can help a lot also in our field of sustainability. And as you know, from the Draghi report, from the Letta report, the Noyer report, in Europe in particular, we lack private capital. We need this private capital in order to finance this transition. How are we trying to do it at the ministry? I mean, I need to be concise, so let me just contain myself to some pills, and please come forward, contact us if you want to know more about our experience. So about money, we are following 2 streams of work. One does not imply any money from the public sector because it's focusing on a fundamental intangible infrastructure, that is called legal and administrative system. We are trying, actually, we are simplifying the legal system, the administrative system for small and medium enterprises to have access to private capital and public capital. This is a journey. To simplify a system is not easy. We started this journey with the OECD and the European Commission in 2019 when Carmine was at Consob as a commissioner. He helped us to get in contact with these 2 other authorities. It's a long journey. We have enacted a reform of capital markets regulation that is focused on, one of the points is focused on is to help SMEs to access public and private capital. The other work stream about money does entail public money to be put in the plate, but we are trying to use this public money to leverage and have a blending of public and private money. We are using public guarantees where private sector and the banking sector has skin in the game. We are using long-term investment fund that are co-financed by public sector and private investors. So here we have a number of tools that we are implementing. So let me, for the sake of time, move on to the second point, data point. SMEs, so on data, we know that they're fundamental. Markets do not price in externalities if they don't have data that are verifiable, complete, and comparable. And so these data are required rightly so, by the financial sector. But on the other hand, I, as working in the Ministry of Economic Finance, I speak with the small and medium enterprises that say, they complain, they say, these are too many data, we don't understand them, and we don't know how to access them. The colleague was mentioning that they are costly. So what we are trying to do, again, with the commission that is financing the project, what we did is a mapping of all the data sets that are public and private, that are regional and national or European. So we have this mapping, and we are trying to make them interoperable, creating a kind of a gate for these SMEs to access, or for the financiers of these SMEs to access these data sets, so that SMEs don't have to bear the cost of producing themselves the data. The data are there. It's about how to extrapolate them, okay? And it's a very difficult task. Believe me, we are working with advisors, but we see that we are making progress, and there are non-profit organizations that are also working on that. Here, the point is that there are a lot of initiatives also there in the private sector, non-profit sector. What you need to also ensure as a public policy maker, to ensure that there is not too much fragmentation between these different initiatives. So this is about data. Then maybe we can talk about the point I was making, too many data, but maybe we can come back there later on when we discuss about simplifying the European framework. but definitely we went a bit too far there. The third point is dialogue. Okay, Carmine said it, everybody, the previous said, we need to have public authorities, private, and this session shows it. We need to have around the table. So we created a sustainable finance platform where we have the ministry, all the supervisors, the private stakeholders, they get around. The first thing we said is, okay, banks ask for information, SMEs complain that these information are too different, too many. So what do? We have them sitting around the table. We identified 40 data points, clear, really necessary. Standardization from the side of the banks, and we are trying to have banks commit to have these requests standardized. And on the side of SMEs, making them understand that this is, as we were saying, is a management tool. It's not only a compliance requirement. I mean, you have access to more capital, lower cost of capital, better goodwill. You have a link with your communities, but they need to understand that. So for this, you need training. This is a new feature of financial education. Financial education, we always said, okay, people need to understand their time horizon, their risk appetite, but also they need to understand that impact is a new dimension through which you need to assess your investments. Impact. And this dialogue led to a document that is called a guidance that we published, and we are also running this guidance to have e-learning and financial education training for SMEs. For the sake of time, I will stop here.
Thank you, Stefano, because you are bringing something very, very important, certainly the problem of data, and also the necessity to be clear what is really needed for the small, medium enterprises to collect, and so that really the exercise can be meaningful. Because if not, it's too costly, not understandable. What are they asking us? It's another burden, is another hurdle. We don't see the importance. How can we see it as strategic, as useful for our organization if we do not understand? So the effort of the public sector to simplify, to reduce fragmentation, to be more agile and flexible is really important. So now, what are the major activities that you are doing and that you see from the point of view of ISSB relevant?
Thank you, Roberta. I'm very honored to be here in this panel discussing a very timely and critical topic in a new era of sustainability disclosure in my world. So let me briefly explain why and in what sense ISB is different from previous framework or standard in this area. So I can say two main differences. One is GRI was a main standard for many organizations globally, including Korean companies. But GRI asks for disclosure on the impact your reporting entity are creating in the world. But ISSB is requiring to report on risk and opportunity of sustainability-related issues the reporting entity is facing. And these risk and opportunity could come from the impact you are creating or also dependence you have on outside world. But our main focus is risk and opportunity, not impact itself. So this issue of risk and opportunity is also very critical for public sector operation. When you have some social policy purpose as well, because you may face similar risk and opportunity carrying out your program. That's why even in public sector, I think our standard could be useful to apply. Yeah, that's something I want to emphasize. The other feature ISB is creating is now we are moving from a voluntary disclosure situation to a mandatory disclosure regulated by individual jurisdiction. So definitely we love to have voluntary use of a standard, even in EU and US and some other countries as well. And also MDB are voluntary users. Nobody really required to do it. But we are actually putting more emphasis on mandatory use set by the financial regulators. That's why we have big support from IOSCO. So in already many countries globally declared that they will have their own sustainability disclosure requirement based on our standard, fully adopting in Japan and some other country, Turkey. Actually, they started already. They are having full adoption, and some other countries have partial adoption, like Korea and some other Singapore, as climate first only. So we will see in 2 or 3 years, most of countries in the world, except EU and US, are having mandatory disclosure rule based on ISB. That's a big change. That's why I call it new era of disclosure. And mandatory disclosure requires a mandatory assurance and high quality check inside and outside. That's a big change. And also we'll have more comparability, yeah, for sure. Because if you have low quality disclosure, even if they have same standard, still the content is not that comparable because they are not fully using that standard voluntarily base. So that's the kind of background why ISB became very important. And actually TCFD initiated this kind of change, but TCFD was a voluntary standard, and also TCFD covers only climate change. But ISB is covering not just climate change, but also it will touch on all other kinds of sustainability. That's why we are working on nature capital and also human capital issue right now in research stage. If I have time, I can touch on later. So that's kind of background. So as a global standard setting bodies, we have two mainstream work. Definitely, the first one is standard setting. So we gave out two standards, S1, which is general requirement standard, showing the basic requirement like, you have to make your disclosure part of general purpose final reporting, and we hope to have same scope of boundary of organization like consolidation, if you are consolidated reporting body. And also our S1 asks for non-climate disclosure as well, even if we have only one topical standard right now, which is S2, touching on climate change. But that's why we are working on follow-up area. So we are working on two areas. One is, we call it Bs, biodiversity, ecosystem, and ecosystem service, but you can just call it nature in the project. And the other is human capital. So we finished first phase of research. We moved to the second phase, synthesizing all the results we did for the first phase. And we hope to move to the standard setting phase, hopefully within a year, maybe a little earlier than a year. And then we'll see additional topical standard coming up. And the implication of having additional topical standard as part of our standard is, in some countries like Korea and Singapore, they have a climate-only policy. So they will require only climate change-related mandatory disclosure now. But if you make X3 or S4 for other topics, probably these countries will make this as a topic also mandatory. So that is kind of implication I see. And also we are working on SASB enhancement because currently, without having other topical standard, we strongly suggest use SASB content for non-climate issue right now. That's why we are improving them right now So we will finish our first project on 12 industry within a year. So we will have a consultation period soon in two areas, extractives and processed food industry in second half of this year. So I'd love to hear your opinion. So that's the first stream of work of setting the standard. And the other one is promotion, definitely. We have to help the users to understand what the standard is asking and how to apply the standard for their own practice. So we have a lot of promotion program, and the key partners are like MDB. We are using global capacity building partners to reach out all different countries, stakeholders, to make them more aware of this importance of the disclosure and also how to apply our standard. So luckily we had IBRD and the World Bank member and also African Bank, and recently Inter-American Development Bank had an MOU with us for this promotion activity together. So I hope ADB will lead that kind of promotion partnership in Asia region soon, in near future. So that is promotion side. And internally, we are creating a lot of education material on materiality judgment and some other issue. And also we have we are making a lot of webinar available so you can learn from our material. And we have so-called knowledge web. So you can see there are a lot of collection of information you can use. And most of them are actually made outsiders, our partners, not by ourselves. So that is a good area you can actually use for your understanding. And also, we even try to amend our in minor fashion already in S2 to help the user to apply our standard in easier fashion when jurisdictional requirement still is a little bit different from our requirement. So that's why we made it a little bit flexible. So ED will come out soon. And then, it's mainly about emission and also methodology. So it will come out soon for consultation, and then we will finish this minor emission this year. This kind of effort is just part of our endeavor to help users to understand better and to apply our standard in easier fashion. So maybe I can stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for describing your journey as standard setter. I would like to ask if you guys have something to add to this, or you would like to add later some consideration to what Pike has just said.
Yes, I just want to flag that.
So we keep it more dynamic.
Indeed. As he said, the point on comparability and the point on the need to ensure consistency and comparability, interoperability between the standards. We in Europe, we started earlier as front runner in this field. So we have designed our standards, European reporting standards. We are reviewing them. I think there, as I said, when you simplify, you need to be careful because you might risk to throw the baby with the bathwater. Yes. So we are doing it. I have a point, maybe I will come back. But on interoperability, I couldn't agree more that we need to make the European standards and the ISSB interoperable. There is a system. You create a baseline, of course, and then you have building blocks where the regional standards can build on the top of the baseline, but investors need to understand the same language using the Greek word koine. The common language is necessary. And I believe that this duality between a single materiality, double materiality has been a source of misunderstanding. In the long run, your impact on society does matter for you because it if you are creating a negative externality, it will backlash against profit, against shareholder. I always think that shareholderism versus stakeholderism, it's the byproduct or a misconceived concept of long-term profit. Long-term profit externalities should be internalized. So it's just a word to flag that the Italian position is that we need to build a common house.
I cannot agree more with what you are saying now. Carmine?
Just one thing you mentioned, IOSCO, just that obviously it was basically impossible to replace President Kanda as a new chair of Corporate Governance Committee because he was so great. So what we did, actually, we found another person, is the president of IOSCO, Jean-Paul Servet. And why it's important, apart from because basically, again, we need international standards, international adoption. Fragmentation, we need flexibility, proportionality, SMEs, whatever, but we need a framework which is, broad. And this is one thing. The other thing, which is in part linked to you, also what Stefan was saying, I mean, I don't want now to be, to exaggerate, but also is the other side. Let's be careful on not, let's say, flooding the market with too much information. So reliability, consistency, comparability. There is a famous quote by Louis Brandeis, a famous lawyer, 1913, was saying sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants, so we need transparency. But then too much sunlight can cause cancer. So we need, you remember Enron case, the SPVs of Enron were in an obscure footnote at page 300 in 2000 volume financial statement. So we need to be careful because that's why this is all the characteristics, and again, the standards are there. And also the accessibility of information, so whatever, single point of entry. But I think this is also important because maybe it's there, it's good, it's compared. So it's important the quality, not only the quantity, and it's important how you get it. But I stop here for now.
Mango or Gingai, would you like to add some more on data?
Yes, no, I just wanted
your
to,
initiatives on this.
Thanks, Roberta. No, I just wanted to comment that in the Philippines, sustainability tracks, starting with disclosure, because disclosure is usually the starting point, it's very challenging and difficult for our SMEs. Large companies, large corporates such as ourselves are challenged enough, but when it comes to these companies who are actually in our supply chains, and even if we try to make it more green or more sustainable in terms of greening our supply, it's very difficult because they aren't really part of the main conversations or dialogues that happen in terms of sustainability, even just for disclosure. So I was actually listening intently to your example, that this ecosystem that you're building and the use of the data, et cetera, and only having like 40 data points. Because in our experience, for sustainability disclosures, we're handling something like 239. So looking at a system like that, I think would be interesting for the Philippines. And this also goes to my other point about sustainability, where it's not just about what you're doing as a company for yourself, but rather also how to help other companies who are probably in your ecosystem, or your value chains to also start their own journey. So we're always open and looking for ways, collaboration, a partnership, or like some kind of synergy. And when we hear that there are these other models developed by other economies, we're definitely interested. That's why I was also taking notes. And I appreciate also the updates on ISSB, because biodiversity and nature for us is very important in the Philippines. We feel maybe that we might not be able to turn off our coal plants tomorrow, but we can definitely start doing something really big in terms of biodiversity and nature, which also have direct impacts in terms of our own climate vulnerability. So I appreciate the updates as well that you've given.
That's great. The value of the dialogue and the value of setting a panel so diverse and the collaboration that can raise from improve. We can all together produce.
Can I add
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for...
It's interactive. And I have told all of you when we prepared.
Thank you for pointing out interoperability issue, because that was one of the continuing issue for our organization for the last 3 years. Actually, one of our vice chair in Sue is working on interoperability every day for the last 3 years to have a better coordination with the ESRS and CSRD. So we are aware of that kind of issue. Even now, working on nature and human capital, we are checking interoperability issue as well. And one thing about the risk, impact, risk, and opportunity, I fully agree that there is circularity, that when you create some impact, there are risks coming up. In short term, we have transaction risk. In the long term, we will have a long-term fiscal risk. But thing is, when you make an annual report on such an issue, you are reporting for just 1 year period. And you're reporting on your own entity only. So the thing is, the circularity of impact coming to risk doesn't work for that period. So what I'm saying is, in many cases, some companies face risk, not because of the impact you are creating. Those risks is coming from others' impact in previous long historical period. That's why when you have annual reporting issue, we have to separate risk and opportunity from the impact a little bit. So that's why even in public sector, risk, especially fiscal risk, especially acute fiscal risk, is very critical in making some decision for any kind of infrastructure or some social problem as well. That's why I emphasize the importance of being aware of the big issue of risk related to sustainability, especially climate change, for the short term. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Meng?
Yeah, quickly, I also want to echo, I think I was enlightened as well. From private sector perspective, fully agree with the importance of interoperability. And I also want to highlight the importance how to strike a right balance. And agree with both of you on the focusing on the key points, materiality. To enhance our data reliability, we engage with external data ESG reporting assurance company, TÜV Rheinland, 150-year-old German assurer. We also worked with consultants to build up a whole tiered ESG data management system. So tier 1, 33 key metrics, like your 40, and tier 2, maybe 100, and then tier 3, maybe over 1,000. But I think what you said is very important. If we do personal, I think ESG data helps you to examine the health and the growth potential, value creation of a long-term of a company. It's somewhat like our individual doing health checkup. Although we may have a report of over 1,000 data, essentially, you may still want to look at the most important index related to you, like your industry or your stage, and you would typically focus on the warning signals. So I think the breadth of the scope of the data helps you to have a broad radar, so you are on top of your performance and the industry benchmarking. But also the wisdom required to focus on the key metrics. I think maybe for standard setters, we could also foster more public-private dialogue to see how to strike a balance here.
Thank you. Thank you, Meng. Stefano, would you like to add a word on the progress on EU or now?
It's interesting because the discussion we're having, we are identifying two extremism, too many information, yes, and too little information. When we watch American movies, we always see that the lawyer, when he wants to snow under, when it has to the discovery process in a trial, so there is a lawyer against another lawyer. So the lawyer needs to give information when, so either he doesn't give any information to the other lawyer, or he knows the other lawyer under tons of information, so that it's like no information. This is a metaphor I use at the university for students to understand. In Europe, we are simplifying. Now the risk is, I think, that we are simplifying too much, meaning now it's a European discussion, but may be useful because we're moving now in the Commission proposal, it's called about the scope of reporting, sustainability reporting. Now in this proposal, they're saying only companies that have above 1,000 employees would be subject to mandatory sustainability disclosure. And believe me, in Italy, this would be a very high threshold. So you are moving, you need tiering. That's a key system. So what we are saying is you can identify another tier that is, for example, between 500 employees and 1,000 employees, that you make this tier subject to this simplified disclosure made of 40 data points. So the point I want to make is that the swing of regulation sometimes goes too much from one side to the other side. We need to get it right. We need to have a tiering system. Second point, just very briefly, again, we have to get it right at international level. Italy, so sorry for some self-promotion for Italy, reopened the Sustainable Finance Working Group in the G20 Forum in 2021, and we are co-chairing it with China exactly for trying to keep the journey going, because we are living in a time where we run the risk of getting it, making a U-turn, and for our sons and grandsons, this is not acceptable.
Okay. Can we open? I have not the time, but I can open. Please, the floor is yours.
First of all, congratulations to all the esteemed speakers for their invaluable commentary.
Thank you.
My question is something that perhaps wasn't in the agenda, is how is AI helping or not helping? Can it be trusted or not for sustainability disclosure reporting?
And the question is for the panel, or for?
Just one flash comment.
Yeah.
I spoke about the twin transition at the beginning, saying that innovation and sustainability go hand in hand. I believe it would be a great help, but then I would leave to colleagues to further comment. But I think that there is definitely a role there. Then, of course, I believe in human beings checking machines and using your critical mind. But definitely, I think for measuring the impact of your company, artificial intelligence and technology, so the twin transition goes together.
Meng?
Yeah, maybe I can, thank you for the great question. I could briefly share Andrew's experience using AI and other digital technologies to apply to the ESG reporting data collection. At Ant, we serve over 50 million SMEs. It's not the typical small and medium size, is micro, like average loan probably 5,000 euros. It's really the mom and pop shops. To help them to get finance started from 10 years ago. At that time, we used the big data and satellite imaging data for rural farming lending. And in most recent years, we noticed we could also apply AI to automatically collect the data. For example, for our 50 million SMEs, we asked them if you could take a picture if you are doing green stuff, for example, green packaging, green logistics, if you are adhering to local environmental regulations, for example, waste recycling, you can take a picture and upload to our website. No real staff would look at those pictures. All those pictures will be identified through machine learning. So through such self-reported green behavior, our behind-the-screen automation calculation could give each of the SME a green portrait. We know how green you are, and that kind of analysis is also supplemented by other metrics. Some from the public, the third-party information, some are from the transaction history, but their self-report data is an important a factor for us to have a ESG rating. And the greener companies will get a more beneficial or a green loan with like preferential rates. So we are starting to use AI to help our small clients.
Thank you, Meng. Other questions? Yes, yes. Mike?
Sorry, Gingai's question to you. Could you share how your company's been partnering with government and business associations when discussing disclosures?
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, right, the power of synergy or collective action. So some of the work that we're doing in Aboitiz is really partnering with not just our government regulators, but different NGAs, government agencies, as well as forming coalitions or alliances between public and private players. So, for example, in the policy space, with regards to a lower carbon economy for the Philippines, we have a partnership which is called Carbon PH Coalition. It's actually partnered with the DNR and with the Climate Change Commission. And what we do as private sector companies is we sit in that alliance or coalition. Aboitiz is one of the conveners, and we weigh in on different policies that will have a medium to long-term impact on the carbon roadmap for the Philippines. We also do have what we call a private sector advisory council. So this is a council where most of the CEOs of the largest conglomerates in the Philippines sit. They directly advise the president and the cabinet on different sectoral issues, challenges, policy recommendations, including on anything that is sustainability linked or related. And that's a council that we initiated in a few years ago during the term of President Marcos, and that's still ongoing. So every 2 weeks, we have a public-private sector meeting between the president, the cabinet, and all these CEOs, and they weigh in on different policy recommendations. So there's a lot of that goes on in our country.
I think we're at the end, but just to comment on this question. I mean, one thing is that in any case, private companies, corporates, they should, irrespective of binding adoption in countries, whatever, and flexibility, but please use it, adopt and do. But the second thing is that we've been talking about disclosure. But disclosure, I mean, is a sort of incentive, but you need to act in a sustainable way, because otherwise we build another
castle of nothing. Oh, last question.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I have two questions. One is for the ISB. In view of the multiple global ESG reporting frameworks operating globally, such as the GRI or the TCFD and the SASB, what do you think should be the role of ISSB in harmonizing these frameworks globally and the way ahead for that? And secondly, do you think there should be an enhanced role for the auditors in embedding a risk-aware culture within organization to ensure sustainability reporting and compliance? Thank you.
All right. So in terms of mandatory disclosure rules, we can say there are big three. One is EU ESRS, based on CSRD. And US has started to create their own standard, but they stopped. So we don't know when it will come back. And other than the EU and US, I see all other countries are making their own standard based on ISSB. And that's our role. So that's why we call ourselves as a global baseline. We call it baseline, meaning that you can add more at top of that. But we hope you don't go below that. That's what we are hoping for, even though we have very high bar. So that's why, we have a lot of, time and effort used for interoperability from the beginning, because EU started earlier and they finished earlier. Now they may working on sectoral disclosure standard, but for the topical one, we are done. Well, we have omnibus now making some changes, but we've completed, but we are not done yet. That's why we are working on follow a standard. So having this kind of situation, all we can do is, have maximum interoperability with EU partners and also US if they can continue, and helping all other countries easier to adopt our standard or make their own standard based on ours. So that's what we are trying to do continuously. So, but even in Europe, UK is using our standard rather than, they are not EU anymore, that's why. So that's the situation globally. We cannot have single one, unfortunately. So that's why we have big three. But, I can see even ESRS and US standard were based on TCFD framework, having 4 pillars. That's why we have more common feature. And through 3 years working with ESRS, EFRAG, we really maximize interoperability in terms of terminology, definition, and so on, and structure, and so on. So we will continue that kind of following work to make all those prepare, which have to prepare for US-based reporting, as well as some other jurisdictional reporting as well, like many global Korean companies. They have a European operation, so that's why they have to start with filing with the SRS, but they have Korean standard based on ISP. But fortunately, there are some difference because as you mentioned, you have double materiality. We have only risk and opportunity side. So we have more to do with the ESR, but there are many common features for sure. That's why we have operability education material comparing climate change issue between 2 standards as part of our educational guidance. Yeah, so you can use them for your own sake.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think it's time. It's time, but I cannot thank you more because this panel was really great, insightful, and I really think that you deserve a round of applause. Thank you to all of you for being here today.